to install the ASAHRK auto hammer rebuild kit into the AH15 auto hammer, we're going to open it up, set this manual aside, get out our new parts, set them over here, and the parts that we're replacing are all 6 O-rings, the 163 bumper, the 161 exhaust seat, and the 158 valve. So set aside your old parts so they don't get mixed in with the new parts. Open your O-ring kit. This is the manual that comes with the tool, and it has some instructions in it, and it has a schematic breakdown with all part numbers. You can save that for future reference. The O-ring guide has the O-ring pictures to set them on so you're sure what part numbers match up with the O-rings, and you install the proper O-ring in the proper location. So once we have all of our parts set where they need to be and our old parts out of the way, let's go ahead and get started on assembly. To start with assembly, grab your 157 cap, your new 161 exhaust seat, urethane face up, 162 plug, 1/4 by 20 by 5/8 inch screw, your 3/16 hex wrench, and tighten that sufficiently. Your 2-031 O-ring is going to go in the O-ring groove on the outside of the cap. To make sure it seats properly, run your hand along that O-ring in the groove. Let's open the small tube of lubricant that has come in the kit, and we're going to squeeze out a small amount on that O-ring. We need enough to where the O-ring is sufficiently covered all the way around. At this point, let's go ahead and grab our housing and put a small amount of that lubricant on the inside diameter of the housing where the 4-218 O-ring rides up and down on that tip. Once those are greased, set them aside. Now let's go ahead and assemble the motor assembly. We're going to start with our 159 stem, our new 163 bumper from the kit. We're going to set that 163 bumper on the stem. We're going to grab our new 158 valve, and we're going to install all 4 O-rings onto it. The 3-127 O-ring goes on the outside of the valve. The 3-114 goes on in a small groove on the top of the valve. You have 2 4-212 O-rings that go inside the valve. There are 2 grooves in there. Seat them properly and rub your fingers along them to make sure that they are seated properly. Grab your small tube of lubricant and put some on the inside O-rings. You don't want to put any on that outside O-ring yet because we're still going to be handling the valve. Go ahead and rub it all around so they're sufficiently covered. Take your motor or your valve and slide it over the stem and the 163 bumper. Slide your sleeve down onto that. Grab your tip, screw it on, and go to the vise and place it with the flats in the vise to tighten that down. Place the tip in the vise on the flat. Make sure you're lined up. Tighten the vise. Hold the motor assembly with your hand. Use your 1/4 inch hex wrench and tighten that. You don't want to tighten it so tight you snap the stem, but you do not want that tip to be loose. When that tip is sufficiently tight, you want to hold your hand here and make sure that you cannot loosen it with your fingers. If it is too loose, the tool will not operate properly. We have the 4-218 O-ring left. We're going to place that in the O-ring groove, rub our fingers around it to make sure that it is sufficiently seated. Take another amount of lubricant, rub it around the 4-218 O-ring and also around the 3-127 O-ring. Place your motor assembly inside your cap assembly. Place your housing on top of that. Reinsert your 4 cap screws, and your tool will be ready to go.